So the tree is by the fireplace. Why do we need a fireplace here in Arizona? Well, I don't know sometimes. But anyway, March 2018 broadcast. This is a really, really big one to remember if you're talking to Jehovah's Witnesses because it's one of the plainest um, inspiration claims that they have that you can point to that's very recent. Of course, they always say they're not inspired, but we know how they say it in different words. So, ironically, the whole broadcast's theme is in whom do you trust? Now we know where this is going to go, right? So around minute 4, Garrett Loesch quotes Proverbs 14:15, which is so ironic. The naive person believes every word, but the shrewd one ponders each step. Now he's going to go on and exposit that verse, but of course, it applies to every institution, every group, every person, except the governing body, which they'll get to that later. He says, many trusted in religion and were disappointed. It's funny he uses that word disappointed. Have you ever heard of the Great Disappointment, the Millerite movement of 1844? And that's what they sprang out of. They just continued the disappointments as Russell and then Rutherford, they were obsessed with date setting and time periods and calculations and chronologies. Many trusted in religion and were disappointed. This is funny too. Others trusted in governments or the United Nations, but they were disappointed. This is really interesting to me right now because I don't know if you ever thought about it or heard people talking about this angle, but you know how during the pandemic they claim that they were so protected because Jehovah gave them the direction. Now, even some that were in the organization at that time, maybe waking up during that time, started noticing that the direction from Jehovah exactly matched the direction from the World Health Organization. Now, you know that the World Health Organization is the United Nations, right? I think some people don't realize that. They think it's some kind of benign, impartial group of super brains, or something like that. But so when they were doing that, claiming it was from Jehovah was actually trusting in the government and the United Nations. Of course, we know their United Nations Association as an NGO for almost 10 years. I think people don't realize how many times they quote the United Nations in their publications as authoritative and reliable because the United Nations has many associated organizations or lettered things like OSCE, WHO, and there's quite a few that people might not realize are the United Nations. So it would be an interesting project to research all of those, the whole list of them, their kind of sub organizations, and see how many times the Watchtower literature refers to them. I think that's really interesting. Then he says, we should not trust everything we see in newspapers or on television. Well, how about in certain magazines? It's interesting. He just mentions newspapers, not magazines. Um, or how about online television, online video, online televangelists like JW Broadcasting, right? So he says we should not trust everything we see in print or on television. So then around minute 11, this was interesting. He said, as we get closer to the Great Tribulation, we might be confronted with scary tests related to nationalism. Will we keep trusting Jehovah? Um, what is what does he mean by nationalism? I think he doesn't really expand on that, but I think he means nationalism is voting, or even just talking politics, or thinking about politics. They've said in other talks, you're not even supposed to think about it. You're not supposed to have an opinion. Um, this is an interesting question too, because I have heard various people that are PMOs and were active recently saying many Jehovah's Witnesses openly talk about politics now, and even passionately. So, do you notice that, or does it just vary from area or congregation? Is that an unusual thing, or is that a general trend? It seems to me like a fair amount of them are kind of ignoring that. Anyways, then he goes into their claim for inspiration, that they are special and you should trust them and all that. So they quote this. I've seen this quoted before around minute 12, Psalm 32:8. I will give you insight and teach you in the way which you should go. This is what makes it possible. And then he says, this is what makes it possible for the slave to provide precious spiritual food. Now, is that verse really making a basis for someone's claim to inspiration and to be obeyed? Is it related remotely to 9 men in New York? It doesn't even mention 144,000 anointed. Of course, I mean, it's in the Old Testament, but yeah, it's just ridiculous. I mean, it's just more of a general promise for believers. And they twist it to be an inspiration claim and a claim to unique authority. And then here's the climax of this line of reasoning he's in at minute 12. Jehovah provides direction to the slave through Jesus. Jesus, in turn, provides direction for his people through the faithful and discreet slave. We therefore can have full confidence in the scriptural insight, understanding, and guidance. He gives no evidence, no reasons why you should trust them, why you should believe their claims, etc. I've got two things from the online library. This is a hilarious one. It's July 1st, 2013, page 7. It says, the next time, oh, did I say page 7? Yeah, page 7. The next time you meet Jehovah's Witnesses, why not ask them why they trust their religion? Examine their teachings and their record. Then decide for yourself if a religion exists that you can trust. And then another one that's amazing that's in the online library is in August 15th, 2012, page 12 to 13. The article is called Carry On as Kingdom Citizens, and the paragraph 5 is about study history. So it says, do you have a desire to study and recount the history of the earthly part of Jehovah's organization? The more you learn about God's organization and how Jehovah supports his people, the more real God's kingdom will be to you. So, if they have a problem with you asking questions about the history, just refer them to this, that you're just doing what they suggested. So, anyway, have a good one.